Hey everybody now, welcome to the Live on Four Legs YouTube channel and also streaming on Facebook Live. This is our first official Live on Four Legs tier list, and as you can see at the sides, right here, there are songs from 10 that are all listed, all in album order that you can see. And really, what this is going to be from now on is we're going to just tier the song. If you're seeing all these grades here, and you see the S stands for super tier. And super tier is usually people just put in the cream of the crop, the top ones, go into the super tier. Here, there's one super tier song. That's it. One super tier song that we're going to put in. And there'll be a couple of A's, I'm sure. There'll be a couple of B's, a couple of C's. And there'll be some comments in the comment section that we'll be talking to people throughout this. So why don't we just get started? It's the album 10. It's the first one. And to be honest, it's not one I totally go back to a whole lot. Mainly because it just, especially the original recording, can feel a little dated at times. But look, a lot of these songs, how many times have you seen shows where they played 6, 7 plus 10 songs live? Like, they know who their audience is now. They know that people are kind of coming from far and wide to go see them that haven't seen them before, and what they're looking for is stuff from this record just because of the cultural impact that it had. Think about at the time, it was 10, it was Nevermind, it was a couple other albums, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that really grew to fame in 91, 92. And yeah, 10 shot up people's list, and people still hold 10 to a very high standard these days. So, it's, again, not one of my favorites. I think I tend to like the recording on the Redux more. And as it goes with the songs, some of them I feel still do hit live, some of them not so much, and I think that's going to be part of the conversation here. How we're going to do this, we're going to be deliberating on all different things, whether it be the song's impact over the last 30 years, whether it be what it's like live, whether it be what most fans see of the song. There'll be, everything is in play here. It's not just what'd you think of the song for 1991. Everything's in play here. Every conversation's at play. So let's get started. Of course, number one is Once. And I used to really like this song. I used to be a huge fan of Once, and I think that what happened was that after a while, you sort of see the other album openers, especially the one that comes after, go, and you're like, ooh, now that gets an album started. You see Last Exit, and you're like, that's another one that just, they're kind of elite tier there. Brain J, obviously one of my favorite songs. That's elite tier. A couple other songs you can feel the same way about, and Once has sort of taken one of the bottom rungs when it comes to lead-off album songs. And it's not that it's a bad song, it's just I don't think that it still carries the same weight that it used to. I think a lot of people will still feel like the master-slave going into Once ordeal, like that's still special to them. And maybe it's because I really haven't dug into the studio record enough in the last year or two that maybe Once just doesn't feel that way for me anymore. But I think out of all of what we're going to rank today, I think we're going to have some tops. And really what I want to do is I don't want any more than about 4 or 5 for A tier. Let's make this real elite, because we're going to have to get 1 into S. So if we get 4 or 5 here, then we'll have enough to work with. But you can easily see all them going into the A tier. And then the B tier and C tier kind of, mix up the last few songs that are on the board. So, for Once, I think out of all these songs, I'm putting it in the C tier. And that's not an indictment of just, not liking the song or anything, but I just don't. I think it's just kind of brought back for a little nostalgia now. It's not as pivotal of a song as it used to be. Live, it sounds good, and there are good moments with it, but overall, it's kind of like this buffer song that it's used in like an encore because they know they can get it over with the crowd and the crowd can be excited with it, but it's not going to be anything that tears your set list apart. So once I'm putting in the C tier because I think we have a lot of elite level songs to go through here, including the next one, which is track 2, and it's Even Flow. And I think a lot of people have different opinions about Even Flow, and it's not one that has really stuck with the crowd for a very long time. I've maybe at one point in my life I thought, okay, this is the bathroom song, and I'm gonna leave during Even Flow. And then, you realize after a while, after covering so many shows and hearing so many versions of this, that they talk about this all the time. Because, and after the song, you hear Ed say, that's Mike McCready, that's Matt Cameron, and there's for a reason. Like, there's still think it's an out-of-this-world performance. Because they're right, it is. And out of all the talent that in the world that everybody in the band has, and look, I looked at 2003 versions of Even Flow to really say that those are like some of the elite. And then you go down the line, 2006, and you have Matt Cameron's drum solos that get implemented. Maybe now and again, now the solo can tend to be a little cookie cutter. I don't disagree with that, but it's still on such a high level compared to everything else. So I have no other choice but to put this in the A tier. I think that's an easy A. A lot of people won't agree with me, but I think easy A here. I mean, we're just getting the heavy hitters early. Obviously, the next one's going to be Alive. And I think Alive, less so than Even Flow, has kind of had a little bit of staying power and has felt like it's more the reward of the set, and you know when it's coming. It's the identity of the song is just getting people to sing along and getting people to feel like being at a Pearl Jam show is being in a big party, and that's why you always get it kind of Alive, either Rockin' in the Free World or Baba O'Reilly or Sonic Reducer, and then close your set with most likely Ledbetter or An Indifference, depending on the night. But it's something that I think still holds a lot of weight to this day. I think the band sees the significance in it. I think that people still, even after like 700, 800 times played live, I think people still attach themselves to it. And a lot of it comes from that group that was around in 2000 that didn't get to see this at all after Ross killed. So I think it's, once again, easy A. Easy A for Alive. Begins with A, put it in the A. Why Go? Why Go is one that the band, this was dropped for a very, very long time. It, in the Jack era, just sort of fell apart, and it didn't really work with his beat. It felt more like a Dave thing very early, and then it just kind of disappeared throughout Yield, throughout Binaural, and came back late in the Riot Act era. They worked with it a little bit, but it really solidified its moments during the 2006 tour, where they were basically playing this every single night, and they were feeling a certain way. Matt really started to find a groove with it and sound really, really good on it, and it's become a song. Play it early in the set, play it late in the set. Fans are going to react to it. They're going to, do the hey, 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 and they're going to do the pogo, and everybody on stage is electric. You got Jeff's bass in the beginning. That's just booming presence. Unforgettable mic solo in there. I think it falls just short of being in the A tier and is much better than being in the C. This, to me, is a B tier song. Good, and it's good when it shows up in shows. It's still, once again, like I said in the beginning of this, 10 songs are common to get in sets nowadays. And Why Go is usually along the lines of, maybe the tier under Alive and Even Flow that are going to be guarantees, and Black that are going to be guarantees. I think Why Go is like the next one that it's like pretty guaranteed that you're going to get it, but maybe it's a different expectation. Maybe it's a different kind of throw in the beginning of the set or late in the set. But Why Go? B section. perfectly fine B. We are on Black. Black, out of all these songs, I think gets better with time. And, thinking back to 1992, and there was some reluctancy on whether they should play it or not, and it was really kind of meant something to Ed, and he didn't, because it was so personal to him, he didn't really want to relive that on stage. But once they did Unplugged, it felt like that idea changed, and it felt like, okay, instead of trying to hide away from it, why don't we make this an outlet? Why don't I put my heart and soul into this version every single night? And that's essentially what happened. Black is one that we do an Evolution series, and I've always said if we ever try and attempt Black, then we're in trouble, because we can't do that in one episode. It's going to have to be at least a 3-part episode to get in the very early stuff, 91 through 94, and then the Jack era, kind of 95 through 2000 or so, and then the rest. So it's had a very long history. It's changed a lot, and it's changed for the better. The We Belong Together tag is something that I think the fans always tune in for. The extension on when the crowd goes through and comes in with a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, it's a chilling moment, and there's so many different personalities for the song too. It can either be very emotional, it can be kind of like a sing-along, kind of happy, but I think the one that works the most is when the crowd really picks up on it and really sinks their teeth into it, and they're just singing along and praising the song along with the band. And really, you can see in those versions, Ed looks out into a sea of people, watch a version from, a Brazil or Buenos Aires, where they're all just at such high decibels that it's just really impossible not to attach yourself to this one. Easy. It's part of the conversation for the S later. I'll just throw that in there. Reflection of the vibe that night, absolutely, for sure. Now that moves us on to a really difficult one in Jeremy. And I think most people would assume now we have Even Flow and Alive on the board at A. And those are the hits from the record, along with Jeremy. Jeremy would be considered the other hit. And Black, you can say, was a hit that wasn't a single, and most people know it from the record and take that, into account. But Jeremy is also a hit, but I think there's a discussion here for Jeremy, out of all these songs, maybe not having as strong of a lifespan as you think it would be. And I'm not anti-Jeremy at all. I enjoy it when it comes up, but I also, at this day and age, it doesn't ever reach kind of a higher plateau. It doesn't get really emotional or exciting after a certain point. I really do think that Jeremy in the early 90s was particularly very good. They were doing different things with it. Obviously, No Jeremy, which I think we all know about. And then it just sort of turned into, they kind of turned against it for a while. It kind of turned into the song that they were reluctant to do, and they would kind of tongue-in-cheek make jokes about it. And and hearing that now, it doesn't get the kind of pop from me that it used to. However, it's not A. And I don't think it's that downward of a song to be in the C, but I think due to the importance of the song, I can't go lower than B. And I think that's totally fair. Look, I said we were going to get 4 or 5. We have 3 in the A's already. We have some heavy hitters that are still left. I expect at least 2 more to get in the A tier. I don't think that Jeremy eclipses those ones, and we're looking at them down here. You can kind of tell what's left, what's going to be marked pretty highly. So let's get to Oceans. And Oceans I really like Oceans. I think it's an important song, but also it's not filler, but in between Jeremy and Porch, for a lot of years, I remember just going from Jeremy to Porch and kind of skipping over Oceans. That doesn't happen anymore. I really like Oceans more than I give it credit for. However, I think along the terms of important songs, along the terms of what the band plays live and what they think is relevant, Oceans has been around for all this time, 30 years. It's been played. Now, let's take into account there are set lists here that have not, like about 50 set lists that have not been uncovered, that we don't know what they played those nights. I'm sure that there were at least 5 or 6 of those shows where Oceans was the opener. I'm sure of it. It would be impossible not for it to be. But as of right now, we have it counted as Oceans has only been played live, I believe, 95 times, which is extremely low. And as an opener, it works. They don't open with it much anymore, though. For a lot of the times, they were doing this mid-set and kind of encore, and when it comes up, it feels good. It feels kind of like you got that nostalgic feel, but I don't think they make it as important as it could be. And that's why it's in the C tier. I like the song more than that, but it's not above any of what we've seen so far. I would even put Oceans probably one little step under Once. But I like it more than Once. I will say that. I do enjoy Oceans more than Once. But I have to put it in the C, considering what's left and considering what I'm thinking about doing here. This is C tier. All right, we got 4 left from the album, and one of them is Porch. Now, Porch, I think it's one of their most crucial songs in their catalog. When you think of just the aggression that comes from the studio version and the real aggression that comes from it live from 91 through 94 is just, Porch is the song you want to hear. It just gets faster and faster. Ed is getting riskier. He's doing things that you just don't see him do now, like getting on amps, and obviously we know Drop in the Park and with Pink Pop and stuff, but like there have been some really big moments that Porch has been a part of that makes this song extremely important to the legacy, and that it's still part of this. Even now, the band has never really they had a down period, I guess, in like 98 through 2000 a little bit, and maybe into 2003. Yeah, maybe it wasn't as explosive as it used to be, but they really kind of came around on it, and I think that around Backspacer area, you're starting to see this close, either main sets or encores. They still see it as important. It's a song that Ed will go down to the crowd, and he'll go up on the crowd and shake hands, and then somebody will get to pull him up, and he'll sing and have the mic there. It's still a pretty special moment, even though it's kind of an inevitable. Porch is an A tier song. I think that's undeniable. Porch, A tier. No question about it. All right, now we're on to some of the deeper cuts from this record. A deeper cut because it's literally called Deep. But we're going to get to Garden first. And I think Garden is one that has grown on me with age a little bit. That I felt like maybe there was a moment in time that I felt like didn't necessarily capitalize on the identity of Pearl Jam, but really it capitalizes on the identity of Stone and the way that Stone just plays such a melodic groove, and I think that this is a perfect example of that. And I feel like, especially on the podcast, we have done a lot of really good versions of Garden in the past year or so, that you just listen to it, especially more recent versions from the last 10 years, and they're pretty on top of it, and it still works, and they make it work for them. I think it's better than the C song. I think it's B. I think it's B. So I think it's B tier. Okay, on to Deep. And Deep, you know, again, it was one of these songs, kind of like Why Go, that sort of left the set for a while and didn't really have a place. And then it kind of became the deep cut, you know, if they want to play mostly 10 songs and they want to get a song that is rarely played in, Deep is usually the go-to. And I think people still really react to Deep. But, I look at the rest of the songs and I just say that Deep is kind of an outlier here. It was really good live in 1992, 1993. But outside of that, I know that there are people that love 1995 versions. But outside of that, I think that it's just kind of there. That it's fine. It has its role. It has its place. I don't give anything from this record a D or an F tier. So for me, it's C. It's C tier. It's fine. It does its job, but it's not one from this album that people will go back to a whole hell of a lot. It really isn't. I think that it's probably the 11th out of 11 on this record, which is okay because that's still pretty good compared to other records. So we're finally at the last one, and then we can get into the S tier discussion. And we see that there are 4 in the A tier. I said that there would be 4 or 5, and we're on Release, of course, the last track of the record. Release is so special to so many people. It's so important, and it's kind of incongruent with Alive being the story about, being told that his father wasn't who he thought he was, and his father was not alive. And Release kind of being the follow-up on that, with Ed sort of kind of questioning everything. It being the song that he's kind of speaking to his dad, and now we know that his father has now spoken back to him on his Earthling record, which is actually kind of cool, because now this has an even deeper connection to Ed. And I think a lot of people that have lost their father over the years, I think they'll always think of this and they'll say, like, this is what got them through it. And especially if this opens up a show, which it's prone to more often than not, people just have that emotional attachment to it. It's the first song that I ever saw, and I said after the first version that I never wanted to see it again, because I just wanted to keep that one version to myself and not have anything, like, have that be the last glimpse of Release. But of course, it's their most common opener. That's not going to happen. I have no other choice. I think it's slam dunk A tier song. Absolutely A tier. All right, so to go back on this a little bit, in the C tier, Once, Oceans, and Deep, I think that's fair. I think we found kind of the bottom dwellers, I suppose. B, Why Go, Jeremy, and Garden. And I think a lot of people might consider Garden a C song. I think that's more personal to me, that I think Garden is a lot better than people give it credit for. So that's why it's going to go in the B. But now we have 5 A tier songs, and we're looking for one for the super tier. Woo! This is tough. We can go through and we can make arguments for all of these. However, what's the first one that you would eliminate from conversation? I think the first that I'd eliminate from conversation is probably, sadly enough, Even Flow. And what I'm going to do here is kind of move them up a little bit, so it kind of gives the vibe that anything can go in the S tier at any time. But Even Flow, I think, is the one that it belongs in the A tier, but I think it would be too stereotypical to put it in super tier. I think for a lot of people it hasn't aged, and a lot of people are tired of it being played in the same place in the set every single night. I think that it belongs in A, but I don't think it has a place in super tier. So in the A it stays. we have 4 damn good songs to be a part of this S tier here. The lesser of the 4 is probably Release, unfortunately. And that's just because I think there's so much weight on these 3, and there's a lot of weight on Release, but, Release kind of has its box that it's put in and kind of doesn't come out of that opener spot box. Every now and again, I guess you would get it as a surprise, but you can say that with Alive too. You can say that with, I guess, all of these, that they're kind of made for a certain moment, but Release is really the song. I don't think it's super tier. I can't put my finger on why, but I think it's still A tier. So now we're down to 3, just because these songs are so powerful and known by everybody too. Release maybe is a song because it's the last song on the record. But for the casual fan, maybe it gets forgotten about a little bit. What 2 are going to be the debate for the super tier? That's the question here. This one is really, really tough. I think historic Porch and Alive are on the same page. They're like right at the same level. I think Alive maybe has more emotional power to it, but I think Porch has some of the best performances of any song in their catalog. As same with Black. I am going to make this a competition between the 2. Between Porch and Black, and I'm going to drop Alive from S tier territory and say it continues to be in the A tier. Black and Porch. I don't think that you can match the emotional power that a song like Black has, and as I mentioned before, it just seems to get better with age. I think it's a perfect song. I think it's one that the band still sees very highly and always puts in those moments where they know you're going to captivate a crowd. You know that like Mike is going to do something special. You know that the crowd is going to get in on those moments that I'm spinning, whoa, and then sing along with, I know someday you'll have a beautiful life. I know you'll be a star. Yeah. The super tier song from 10, a one and only Black is S tier here. It means it's number 1. That's it. All right. So for any of you guys that are watching on YouTube right now, thank you for tuning in. Black is S tier, Even Flow, Alive, Porch, and Release are A. Wygo, Jeremy, and Gardner B. Once Oceans Deeper C. I think that's extremely fair to what the record is and what the record brings. And I think what we'll do at the end of all this is we'll do a lot of these and we'll take all the songs at the end that make the S tier and we'll do a rating on, S tier or A tier kind of stuff, like what's the ultimate song, so to speak. So Black will go to the final round, I guess. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to join our Patreon, patreon.com/live-on-4legs. It goes back into the show, helps out our website and funds for our website. And what we do for Patreon is we do exclusive episodes. I mentioned the Evolution episode from before. We do a lot of those. We have one coming out on Crazy Mary that's coming out very soon. And we're just going to keep going. Like, there's more content over there that you can imagine. Obviously, we have a lot of content on our main platform, but Patreon has so much stuff. If you want to donate to the show, that's the best way to support the show, is to keep it going. All I ask, I don't care how much you donate. Donate $1 a month. Go on the yearly plan and do $10 a year. If you want to donate more, that's up to your discretion. That's totally up to you, and we're appreciative of all of it. But if that's something that you want to help out with, patreon.com/live-on-4legs, or on the Patreon app, Live on Four Legs, just search for it. Or, an even easier way, go to liveonfourlegs.com. And then there's a button on every page that says Become a Patron. Just click that button. That's all you gotta do. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you for the next one for Versus.